we are making our workshop project right now. This is the final effect we want to get. This is our website. We've created the whole HTML code by this point. So our website at this point look like this. And we want it to look exactly like this. So let's get to work and let's style our website. Let's open our style CSS file. Let's start with the style reset, the asterisk symbol, setting margin to 0, padding to 0. Let's save our file and we can see it like this. Let's decrease those text indents like this. Now let's refer to our HTML tag. I want to set the font family to our whole website to Oswald. So all the elements inside it will inherit it. We can see the difference already. And I want to set the font size of the whole HTML tag to 10 pixels, like this. This way, all the elements inherited 10 pixels font size, and I can style separate elements referring to this value using the rem units. And I use 10 pixels because it's easy to divide and multiply. Now a good way to keep our CSS code readable is placing the comments, what we are styling at the given point of the code. So let's place navigation right here. Let's place our nav tag for now, not the square brackets, but the curly brackets. Then we will have our header with the header tag. Then we will get our main with the main tag. And at the end, our footer with no surprises with the footer tag like this. Let's save our file and let's start to style our navigation. Let's start with styling our A elements inside our nav, so the effect will be the most visible. Let's set its font size to 1 point rem. This way we will get 18 pixels because the rem unit refers to this 10 pixels of HTML CSS rule. And now when we place different value to this property, it also changes. So that's what I did it because it's more comfortable. But let's go back to our A elements. Let's change its font family to Roboto Condensed. This, we can see the difference already. Let's get rid of this underline. So text decoration, none. Also, let's make it uppercase. So text transform uppercase like this. Let's change its color to, for example, 555. It will be this gray color. And as we can see, it starts to look somehow. Now let's try to add some padding to it. For example, 10 pixels. And we can see that we have this 10 pixels padding at its sides and even at the bottom, but we don't have our padding top. And as you may guess, it's because our A elements are still inline. So let's change them to inline block. We have display inline right now. We want it to be inline block. So they could be next to each other, but we could style them freely like this. And we can see the difference already. Let's also place some margins to it. Let's say we want 0 from the top and the bottom and 20 pixels from left and right. Now we can see our elements are separated nicely. Let's take a look on our final effect. We can see that our elements in nav are aligned to the right side of the nav. But of course, if we want to align our elements, our inline block elements in the parent element, we have to refer to this parent element right here. So on the navigation, which is a parent of our A tags, we can use text align property and change it to right like this. And our whole navigation goes to the right side of our website. And now I will place a temporary color to our navigation just to show you something. Let's place a background color of, for example, EEE. It's now visible. Let's see what will happen when we expand our navigation. It has 100% of the width and our A buttons are aligned to right. But now let's see how this looks in our final website. Our nav, after some point, stays in the middle of our website right here. So we have this free space from left and right, and we want to make it in our project. So let's do it. Let's set max width of our navigation. On 1440 pixels, for example, like this. Let's see the effect. Now we can see after some point it stays at its max width, but we can see it's aligned to the left by default, so we can change it using the margin property. Let's go to our CSS code. Let's set its margin. Let's say we want to add some free space at the top and the bottom of our website. So let's place 30 pixels from the top and the bottom and auto from left and right. Now you can see that our nav tag is separated from the rest of our website and from the top edge of our browser. We can see it clearly with this background color. This is our nav tag, this gray area. What's white above it and beneath it, it's the free space set by margins. Let's now see how our navigation works. And it works exactly as we want it to work. Let's get rid of this background color for now, because we don't need it, as like it was in our project. And we can see now our navigation works how it should. Now let's take care of this hovering effect when we hover on our A tags in the nav tag. We don't see it right here. So let's go to our CSS rule and we want to refer to it as nav A hover. And after hovering, we want to set its border bottom as 2 pixels, solid and the same color as the font, which is 555, like this. We can see the effect already. We can see those 2 pixels kind of messes up our structure, but as we know, this last button will look differently. It will have this border already, so this space will be already taken from this nav, and then after hovering on the rest of our A tags, the height of our nav tag will still be the same. So we will deal with it later, and I think that in our final project, the font color changes to black. Let's check it out. Like this. And I think it's the same effect. Now let's work on this last button, which is the registration button, which you can see is quite different from the rest of our A tags, and it's separated from them. So now let's style it. Let's refer to it after our hover CSS rule, because this button will get its own CSS rule after hovering. Let's refer to it as nav A with the class of reg, like this. We could simply just place this selector that we are referring to every element with the class of reg, and we know we only have one element with this class, but I do this to keep our code clean and readable. It's important, especially at the beginning. We can place longer selectors just so our eyes can get used to it and quickly recognize which element is where, just so we could work better and quicker. So let's style our last A tag. Let's set its border, which should be 2 pixels, solid 555, like this. And this way, when we are hovering on our other elements, nothing bad happens with the structure of our website. All right. Let's get this button some bigger paddings. Let's make it 10 pixels from the top and the bottom, and 30 pixels from the left and the right. Now it looks more decent. It looks more or less like in our project. Let's see what else we can place here. Let's get some left margin to 80 pixels, for example. Let's see how this works. Now we separated our last button with the rest of the items in our nav tag. And I think we should separate it from the right edge of the browser window as well. So let's use margin right for that purpose. And let's make it 50 pixels, for example. Now we can see that our button is nicely separated from the end of the nav tag, and in this case from the end of the edge of the browser window. Let's check something else. Let's increase its font size to, for example, 2.2 rem, like this. And now we can see it's bigger. Let's place also some letter spacing, a small one, for example 1 pixel. Let's see how this is gonna look. And I think, in my opinion, it looks really nice. How this looks in our final project, more or less the same. We can see that this button is closer to the edge of the browser window, and that's because we have the scroll bar right here, because our final website is bigger than the whole width of the viewport, so the browser window. And we can see that our website at this stage fits into one browser window, so we don't have this scroll bar right here. And as you can see, it affects the edge of the browser window. Now, let's style the hovering effect of our last button. So let's place a new rule for it, which is going to be nav a reg hover like this. And what we want to do with this button after hovering. Let's change its background color to 555. Its color to almost white, like this. And what we want to change is everything, I think. Let's see how this works. And we can see it works pretty fine, just like in our final project. But as we can see, we have this nice transition, which we don't have right here. So let's make one. As you know, we place the transition property in the element we want to style and not in the CSS rule with the hover pseudo class. Transition, let's make it 0.2 seconds. Let's save our file. And now let's see how this works. Our normal buttons work like this, and our registration is like this. And it looks exactly like in our final project. Let's see how this behaves on wider screen. Exactly as it should. Pretty nice in my opinion. Now let's try to style our header, which we have right here. And we have right here in our project. Let's go to our CSS file. We have our header right here. What we want to place in our header CSS rule is setting its height. Let's say to 40 viewport height. So 40% of the browser window. Let's save our file. We can see the difference already. Let's set its background image now. We don't know this property. I will explain how this works later in this course. We will be talking about the background property a lot. But for now, let's just use this property called not background color, as you can see and as you already know, but background image. So instead of the solid color, we place an image as a background of our element, which is not the part of the HTML structure. And as a value, we want to point out the URL function. What we have to place is URL and the round brackets, like this. In these round brackets, all we have to do is to place the name with the extension of our file with an image. So in our case, car JPEG, which you can already see that our Visual Studio Code tells us what to place. We can place it like this, or we can place it in quotes, which in my opinion is more predictable and better to do. So let's try it out. And we can see we have our image as the background of our header tag. Once again, the property is background image, and the value is the URL function, where we place URL, open and close the round brackets, and inside the round brackets, in quotes or not, we place the name with the extension of the image file we have in the same catalog as our index.html file and CSS file. And it looks like this. As you can see, its position is different than in our final project. We can see more in this picture. And here we have a little zoomed it. So, other thing that we will be talking about later in this course is the property called background size. And we wanted to use the cover value. In short, it means show as much as you can of this image not changing its proportions, and not cropping it too much. Let's save it and see the effect. And you can see that the browser for us will compute the best way to show this image to us, no matter how big or small our browser window will be, just so we can see it better. We will be talking about the background really soon, so don't worry. The next thing we have in our header is our h1 tag right here. So let's style it. Let's refer to it with the header h1 selector. And let's style our heading. First thing, let's change its color to white, like this. Let's change its font size to 6 rem, like this. And we have to center our heading. So we can use text align property with the center value to center it from the left and the right, like this. But we also want to center it from the top and the bottom. And you may remember this trick if we have height of our element specified, which we got right here, which is 40 viewport height. And we have one line of the text, we can set its line height exactly to the same value as the height of our element. Just like this. And now you can see that our text is centered, and if we mark it, we can see that the whole element is the whole line of our text. This is a simple trick that is good to center one line of a text in an element. But you can see the difference that in our final project, this background image is a little bit darker, so our text is more readable. What we want to do right now is to set the background color of our h1 tag. Because our h1 tag is as wide and as big as our header beneath it. Our header has background image, and our h1 in the header will have a background color. Let me show this to you. Wait a minute, this line height should be placed in our header. But as you saw, it also worked placed in our header, so it doesn't make so much difference. But I think this way is more clear for us. So let's keep it this way. We have one line of the text in our h1 tag, and its line height is the same as the height of its parent element, which is the header, which is the whole header. Now look what's gonna happen when we try to put a background color to our h1 tag. Let's make it black. And voila. Everything beneath our h1 tag is black, because our h1 element is as high and as wide as the header, which is beneath it. So what we want to do is to choose background color with the RGBA function, and we will place it with the 3 zeros, so the color is gonna be black. But we will use the fourth value, which is the alpha channel, which is responsible for the transparency of this element. And we will place 0.5. Let's see the effect. And it's exactly what we have here. If we place 0.8, our element will be darker. If we place 0.2, it will be lighter, because this is the background of our h1 tag, and since it's in half transparent, we can see what's beneath it, so we can see the background of the header. And now this looks exactly like in our final project. And these are the tricks we can use creating our websites. In the next video, we'll style the rest of our project.